Hey y'all, this is Aiden with your HIIT workout for the day. All these bands you can get at mybootybandbandit.com. Enter my promo code for 15% off. Grab a light dumbbell and we're just gonna lunge to the side like this. All right, real slow. Don't get your heart rate above 85%, people. That's not what it is. Ah, there we go.
I think I know just the place.
Alright, what up? We're back. We're gonna go over the HIIT training, and no, it is not bandedbootyfitness.com. So don't look at that.
Alright, so let's break it down by the goal and the letter. First we're gonna go with the letters. High intensity interval training, HIIT, otherwise called HIIT. I don't like how this has been represented. This has been whitewashed by gimmicky people, salesmen, snake oil salesmen on Instagram.
Not even shark, it's snake.
That don't have the information that they should.
And they probably don't look like they do a lot of HIIT training either.
So we'll break it down by letter. High intensity. What does that entail? All right. Well, generally it entails if we're speaking about the weight room, high intensity would mean a load greater than or equal to about 80%. Is the general scientific consensus of your 1 rep max. For this instance, high intensity means 80 to 85% of your heart rate max is, again, the general scientific consensus.
Quickly, let's jump into that. Heart rate max. How do you get this? General rule of thumb, and it sounds kind of strange. You'd think there'd be a more scientific way to get a heart rate max, but it's just 220 minus your age. So
that'll give you a good average.
Good average.
Unless you're...
So 20 years old, your max heart rate's going to be about 200 beats per minute. 90% of that, you're going to be around like the 185 beats per minute range. 180. So
yeah.
Boom. Just think about it like that.
So went over high intensity and then interval training. So a lot of how this is presented online incorrectly is you're going to see people doing a high intensity interval training. It's a circuit at 60% of their maximum heart rate. And you're pretending you're doing cardio because it makes you feel good about yourself. I don't know. But that's not how you do it. So high intensity, above 80% of the heart rate generally. And then interval training, which would mean you're going to have some type of interval where you are in a lower intensity zone and a higher intensity zone. This is the interval training portion of high intensity interval training. It's not a break. You don't just sit off and stand to the side and wait for the next set. That's not HIIT. Okay, so there's going to be, for instance, we're going to do...
Like the treadmill, don't jump off and then wait to get back on.
Yes.
Walk, or slow down.
Yeah, so what we're going to do, if we're on the bike, we're going to go 1 minute at a certain heart rate, at 80% of my maximum heart rate. And then when that 1 minute ends, we're going to look to drop down to between 40 to 60% into that parasympathetic state with that heart rate, okay?
And then get right back into the sympathetic state when you...
And then when the next set starts, you're going right back into the sympathetic.
So then that will promote... where there's two things here. I'm going to go over the lipolytic. He's going to go over the glycolytic. Lipolytic fat oxidation. Real quick, going back on that. If you are going to do circuit training and not do like legit cardio, like running up hills and then walking down a hill, run up, like stuff like that, and you want to try and promote HIIT training with weightlifting and doing circuits with these little bunny ab workouts and stuff that you see online, this is a good way to do it. Get your pulse right here, and I usually do a 6 count and then multiply by 10. So, going off that, it's like you want, for him, he'd want to be around 18 in 6 seconds. 180, boom. Now you know you're doing good. If it's not around 18 and it's at like 12, he's just doing like steady state cardio while he's weightlifting. Yeah, exactly.
Slacking. And you can do high intensity interval training with weights. That's not the message we're trying to convey. We're just saying that how it's presented generally is not the correct way.
Right. Yeah, they sell circuit training which is its own different beast. There's a whole nother episode we can do on circuit training, but circuit training and HIIT training seem to be like this with mainstream media, and they should be like that. Yeah,
it's what they're selling is repackaged circuit training. But anyway, enough on that.
So going into the lipolytic system here, what he was saying with the parasympathetic and sympathetic systems here, what's going to happen is when you get into the sympathetic system, you're now going to it doesn't matter if you're working out or you're doing HIIT training, you're going to stimulate your adrenal glands, so norepinephrine and epinephrine are going to get stimulated, but what happens with HIIT training is because your heart rate's elevated to a higher extent than steady state cardio.
Then above 80%.
Yeah, so once you get to like that 80, 90, 95, maybe the last bout of your interval session is like 100%. I'm gassed. I'm doing it all. So when you do that, your norepinephrine and epinephrine are actually going to be stimulated higher than steady state cardio. So what this does is when these are stimulated, your body converts into burning fat because you're in such a high demand energy-wise. Let's just say you're running from a lion chasing you. You're in such a high, it's all 100% or nothing. Your body has to give out 100% or nothing or you're going to die. So when you do that, you go into the most effective way to provide energy to your body, which is going to be broken down in calories per gram. So going off this analogy, when you look at glycogen, which is what we burn when we're in steady state cardio, and we do burn it when we're in HIIT training, but when you look at this, it's going to provide 4 calories a gram, and fat's going to provide 9 calories a gram. We also contain tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of calories.
Depending on who you are.
Who you are, yeah. Like you're 500 pounds and you're going to have hundreds of thousands of calories there. Your body can use that in a much more effective manner to provide energy for this insane stimulus you're in. And then after that, we go into parasympathetic, we cool down, and right back into glycolytic, and it's just boom, yin and yang. And the next thing you know, this is HIIT training is not going to. You'll see studies out there. It might fall short a little bit in total calories per burn, depending on how you're doing it. Like somebody might be good at 65%, and then they suck at 85% exertion. Okay, maybe you'd be better off doing 65%. That's fine. But general rule of thumb is, for somebody who's trying to promote body recomp, if you're not super, like you don't need to lose 100 pounds, and you're like pretty comparable, this is a great way to promote body recomp.
It's a very efficient way to do it too.
Yeah,
obviously.
And being a bodybuilder, this is like man's best friend, so to speak, when you're getting ready for a show. Less cardio, more calories burned, fat burned. That's a win-win for a bodybuilder. You can't really get any better than that.
And there have been a few studies done on the effects on the heart, and it seems to be surprisingly good. Now, granted, this is not my area of expertise, but there seems to be, let's see here, good improvements in acute heart rate recovery. So let's say you are a college football player, and you're constantly in that alactic zone. That alactic zone where you're sprinting for 5 to 10 seconds, and then another play comes. And so you're coming from sympathetic to parasympathetic. Okay, you're gonna have a much easier time if you're doing this. If you're doing the true high intensity interval training work, you're gonna have an easier time coming down to that parasympathetic state, and that's what you want. You want to be able to come down to that parasympathetic state and recover. After that, we see few studies say that it enhances parasympathetic heart rate activity and may have cardioprotective effects. So again, when you're in that parasympathetic state, your heart rate variability is going to be altered. Your resting heart rate is going to be may be altered by high intensity interval training, and it's going to have protective effects in your heart or your cardiovascular
and VO2
system.
max.
And VO2 max
is going
to
get. There's a lot of things with VO2 max.
Yeah.
Then one of the last things I'll get into, and I think he's got one more, or no?
I'm good.
Okay, so that's the last one for him. So the last one for me here is recovery. So if you get good at recovering from HIIT training at a very efficient manner, you're going to be 10 times more efficient at recovering in general, just because of the simple fact that high intensity interval training is going to promote more waste buildup in your bloodstream and in your muscles because it's so high intensity that's what's going to happen. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword here. So you get a lot of waste buildup. It used to be called lactic acid, lactate. We're going to call it hydrogen ion accumulation, and just in general, just lactate, waste buildup, whatever you want to say. But the flip side of this is for him, 180 beats per minute means 180 pumps. So think about a pump of blood, and not only that, he's already working out, he's a healthy individual, he's already super efficient at pumping blood. His heart rate generally is going to be lower, so that means he's got higher stroke volume and less beats per minute needed. So when he goes into the high intensity interval training, his heart's already good at pumping blood, and then when he gets to the threshold of 180 beats per minute versus 60 beats per minute, yeah, there's going to be some waste buildup there, but the removal from the amount of blood that's flowing through the system and a circulation is tenfold higher. So you're going to remove. You're going to get really good at recovering. So
basically, we're trying to break it down. High intensity interval training. What is it? Above 80% of your heart rate threshold. Interval training, meaning a minute on, a minute off, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. Pick your interval. Don't be crazy.
Right.
Okay. Why are we doing it? Fat oxidation. Okay, and there's some
calorie burns,
seemingly to be some acute positive heart rate effects on the parasympathetic nervous system.
So yeah, and I can't stress it enough. You're on the treadmill, you're on the bike. That interval when you are going has to be like so close to the max that you can say, I can do this for 60 seconds, and I can do it like 10 times over a 20-minute period. Or 8 times, whatever. It's got to be very high intensity, but 100% would mean you're probably not going to be able to do it again. So you're right there. You could do it in little bouts with enough recovery.
And you don't need a fitness tracker. You don't need some fancy heart rate monitor. If you have one, fine, use it. I'm sure it works well. But this trick or this one, that one never fails. So you're getting the right information there as long as you can count simultaneously.
Right. Yeah, pretty much. And it's easy. The other thing too with this is that people are like, oh, that's hard to find. Well, when your heart's beating in true high intensity interval training threshold, this is going to be easy to find. It's going to be like
it's going to be pumping.
Yeah, so it's going to be real easy. On that note,
that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, I think high intensity is done. So just remember, do not go to that website. And
no booty bandits.
And make sure you are given virtually as much as you can on your sessions when you're going into the sympathetic mode.
There you go.
Sympathetic, high intensity. Remember